Hello everyone, and welcome to Chess Master Theater. I'm Michael, and I'll be your host. Today's podcast is brought to you by your friends at chesscafe.com. Remember, at the end of the podcast, we'll provide a coupon number good for an additional discount at chesscafe.com. Today's podcast is going to present an abridged review of the book titled Pawn Sacrifice by international chess master and author Timothy Taylor. The author does an excellent job first analyzing the different types of pawn sacrifices based on their purpose and goal. He then dedicates a chapter to each category, providing an in-depth analysis along with many games of masters, grandmasters, and world champions to clarify and illuminate the subject, pawn sacrifice. For this podcast, we are only going to concern ourselves with Chapter 4, Pawn Sacrifice for Deflecting. Here a pawn is sacrificed to deflect the enemy away from the main battle. Of the 5 games presented in this chapter, we've chosen Game 22 between Grandmasters Tal and Benko at the 1959 Candidates Tournament. Okay, let's begin the game. We have Tal with white and Benko with black. Tal opens with e4, Benko with c5. Knight to f3, g6, d4, bishop to g7, d5, d6, knight to c3, knight to f6, and Tal throws a quick check in here with bishop to b5. Benko blocks with his knight to d7, a4, black castles on the king side, and then white does the same. a6, threatening the bishop retreats to e2, rook to b8, rook to e1, knight to e8, bishop to f4, knight to c7, bishop to f1, b5, and with that, black is offering to exchange pawns on the b5 square, but Tal has other uses for that a-pawn, as we'll see shortly. And instead he moves his queen to d2, rook to e8, h3, knight to f6, rook a to d1, bishop to d7, e5, b4, threatening the knight to e4, and black captures the knight on e4, and white captures back with his rook. And here's the point of deflection, as we talked earlier. You can see this bishop is centrally located. It has good mobility, and he's going to be deflected away from the action which seems to be building here on the king side. He goes off and takes that pawn, and then immediately white goes on the attack with bishop to h6. Black retreats the bishop to h8, rook d to e1, f6, e6, and with that pawn to e6, he solidifies this wedge here, which cuts the board in two, making it more difficult for black to move these pieces to the king side where the attack seems to be taking place. f5, threatening the rook to h4, and then here's the second deflection. As you can see, the attack is beginning on the king side, and the bishop is going to be deflected to the other side of the board, to the b2 square. And we continue on. Bishop to f8, the rook takes the bishop, queen to h6, rook to f7. The pawn takes the rook on f7 and checks the king. The king takes the pawn, and then the queen takes the pawn on h7, checking the king. Black brings the bishop back to g7 to block. Rook to h6, queen to g8. Queen takes the pawn on g6, checking the king. The king retreats to f8. and white brings the knight in to g5, and the queen. At that point in time, it's difficult to see how black could even get a draw at this point. And he can do one. He does one more move, queen to d5, picks up that pawn, but with the next move, rook to h8 check, Benko concedes the game to Tull. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the game as much as I did, and I certainly hope you'll pick up a copy of the book Pawn Sacrifice. It should be a welcome addition to everyone's chess library. Now don't forget, in appreciation for all your support, stay tuned for a coupon discount number, good for an additional discount at chesscafe.com. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.